Dobbins Air Reserve Base. Dobbins ARB is a United States Air Force Reserve Air Base located in Marietta, Georgia, a suburb about 20 miles northwest of Atlanta. Originally known as Dobbins Air Force Base, it was named in honor of Captain Charles M.Dobbins, a World War II C-47 pilot who died near Sicily. The installation is the home station of the host wing, the 94th Airlift Wing of the Air Force Reserve Command and its fleet of Hercules C-130 aircraft, and is also the location of the headquarters for AFRC's 22nd Air Force. It is also home to the Army Aviation Service Facility No. 2 of the Georgia Army National Guard and the fleet of UH-60 Black Hawks. Dobbins is also home to Marine and Navy Reserve units. Dobbins ARB has two runways which it shares with the General Sicily.The Clay National Guard Center to its south. Runway 11/29 is the primary runway and is 10,000 feet long and 300 feet wide with directions 110 and 290 magnetic. The second runway, called an assault strip, is a 3,500 times 60-foot runway referred to as 110 to 290, which is parallel to runway 11/29. Over 14,000 flight operations occur annually, making the Dobbins complex an extremely active facility with diverse air traffic operations from all branches of the military and other U.S. government agencies. This air traffic environment takes place within the area of the busiest airport in the world and is as busy as many medium-sized commercial airports. History. War years. Originally intended by Cobb County, Georgia as an alternative airfield for Atlanta's Candler Field, this airfield was constructed in 1941 as Rickenbacker Field. This was named for the former U.S. Army Air Corps top-flying ace of World War I, Captain Eddie Rickenbacker. The push to build this airport came in 1940 when President Franklin D. Roosevelt selected General Lucius.D. Clay of the Army Air Corps to be the chief of the new Civil Aeronautics Administration, which was engaged in a huge program of airfield construction. About 450 to 500 of these were built in preparation for any possible war against the United States, from the east or from the west. In 1940, the CAA offered to build a modern paved airport in Cobb County if the local governments provided the land. Due to the potential labor force for defense factories in this area, local officials also hoped to attract a large aircraft factory adjacent to the site. On October 24, the government of Cobb County announced the existence of this airport project, and it also revealed that purchase options had been signed for 3 prospective sites. The Atlanta City Council also passed a resolution endorsing this project on January 2, 1941. Since the Army Air Corps had recently taken over part of Candler Field, the principal municipal airport for Atlanta, the new airport in Cobb County was also seen as a reliever airport for Atlanta. In May, the local government issued bonds to purchase 563 acres located 3.5 miles southeast of Marietta along the western side of the new 4-lane superhighway, U.S. Highway 41, linking Marietta with Atlanta. The CAA next allocated $400,000 for construction of 2 4,000-foot-long runways on the land. The W.L. Florence Company of Powder Springs, Georgia, the low bidder with a bid of $290,000, won the contract. This bid, well below the estimated cost of $400,000, allowed the CAA to add the third runway to this construction project. The construction began on the 14th of July 1941. In the next month, the Gulf Oil Corporation and Georgia Air Services agreed to lease the airport, once completed, for $12,000 per year. In September 1941, Eddie Rickenbacker, America's leading flying ace of World War I, and then the president and general manager of Eastern Airlines, agreed to have this airport named Rickenbacker Field in his honor. In the same month, the U.S. Navy requested permission to use this airport for the flight training of naval aviators. In October, Georgia Air Service signed a $70,000 contract for two 180 by 160 feet airplane hangars to be built. After the Japanese attack on Pearl Harbor, work on this new airfield accelerated rapidly. In January 1942, Lawrence Dale Bell, the founder and president of the Bell Aircraft Company, inspected this site for a proposed government-financed airplane factory for the Department of War. Meanwhile, the Department of the Navy announced its intention to take over the new airfield as an auxiliary naval air station. The Navy shortly began land condemnation proceedings. The Department of War, in turn, announced that it would not contest the wish of the Department of the Navy to take over Rickenbacker Field, and that it would build its new factory elsewhere. The Cobb County government appealed to the Secretary of the Navy, Frank Knox, urging him to change the Navy's plans, since other options were available for flight training. Secretary Knox relinquished the Navy's claim on this airfield and left it to the Army Air Forces. On January 23, 1942, the Bell Aircraft Company and the Department of War announced that an aircraft factory employing up to 40,000 workers would be built near Marietta. Also, the Department of War announced on February 19 that Rickenbacker Field would be renamed the Marietta Army Airfield. Although its construction began in March 1942, its official groundbreaking ceremony took place in May 1942, with Captain Rickenbacker present. Rickenbacker went on to establish and pay for an aviation educational program to train workers for both civil aviation and military aviation. Also in 1942, the city of Atlanta began work on its contribution, a pipeline to supply the new factory with water from the Chattahoochee River. In addition to taking over Rickenbacker Field, the United States Army Air Forces purchased a parcel of land just north of the airfield for a cantonment area. The Marietta Army Airfield was activated on June 6, 1943, with its personnel housed in tents as part of the 58th Bombardment Operational Training Wing. At the end of June 1943, there were 42 officers and 356 enlisted men stationed here. The mission of the Marietta Army Airfield was acceptance testing of B-29 Superfortress heavy bombers for the USAF, the modification of B-29s, and the operation of an Army air depot. Barracks for the soldiers reached completion in November 1943. By January 1, 1944, the number of soldiers stationed here had risen to 73 officers and 1,263 enlisted men. For a period of time, the Marietta Army Airfield was assigned to the USAF's 2nd Air Force under the XX Bomber Command. On the 12th of April 1944, the Marietta Army Airfield was reassigned to the 17th Bombardment Operation Training Unit. In the spring of 1943, the adjacent Bell Aircraft Company's factory, an additional plant and a Martin plant at Offutt Field, Omaha, Nebraska, for manufacturing B-29 Superfortresses was completed. The Defense Plant Corporation of the Department of War paid for the construction of this factory, and the department called it Plant Number 6. Bell Aircraft completed its first B-29 on schedule, and this was first test flown on November 4, 1943. The production of B-29s at this factory increased slowly during 1944, and by the fall of 1944, Bell Aircraft's output of new B-29s began to meet and exceed the goals of the Department of War. By January 1945, Bell Aircraft had completed 357 B-29As. After the completion of the last one of these, the production in Marietta was switched to the B-29B Superfortress, which was a simplified version of the B-29 without the computerized gun system and other components that raised the allowable bomb load from 11,000 to 18,000 pounds. The new B-29B radar, mounted in a wing-shaped radome under the fuselage, gave much better images of the ground. The 315th Bombardment Wing, based at Northwest Field, Guam, received most of the B-29Bs for night low-altitude Pathfinder-led missions against Japan. Bell built a total of 311 B-29Bs before the plant closed in January 1946. At its height, the Bell bomber plant employed 28,263. Post-war Marietta Army Airfield remained open after the war and became the home of Georgia Air National Guard and Air Force Reserve units. The first post-war ANG unit, the 128th Fighter Squadron, activated at Marietta on the 20th of August 1946, with P-47 Thunderbolts. This was followed by the activation of the headquarters of the 116th Fighter Group on the 9th of September and the activation of the headquarters of the 54th Fighter Wing, which commanded 56 units of the Air National Guard throughout the southeastern states. In 1948, part of the land and barracks at the original Naval Air Station Atlanta in nearby Chambly were given to the state for the purpose of creating an engineering technology school that could rapidly train returning soldiers for civilian work in various technical fields. Also in 1948, the airfield became Marietta Air Force Base as a result of the creation of the United States Air Force. In 1950, the Air Force renamed the base Dobbins Air Force Base in honor of Captain Charles M.Dobbins of Marietta, a World War II transport pilot. Captain Dobbins died near Sicily on July 11, 1943 when U.S. Navy gunners who had earlier suffered a Luftwaffe attack mistakenly downed his C-47. He was flying his third mission of the day, dropping paratroopers. In 1949, the Georgia Institute of Technology in Atlanta created the Southern Technical Institute, which was moved to land given by Dobbins AFB in 1958. Following the war, the Bell Aircraft Plant No. 6 remained closed for 5 years. In 1951, Lockheed Aircraft Corporation took over the plant to modify B-29s for the Korean War. Lockheed also went on to build 394 B-47 Stratojets at the plant under license from Boeing. Additionally, Lockheed also conducted a B-47 modification program at Marietta to handle the B-47 production and modification work. The airfield received a 10,000 × 300 feet runway. Over the years, the Lockheed plant constructed the Lockheed Jetstar business jet, C-130 Hercules, C-141 Starlifter and C-5 Galaxy. In 1957, Naval Air Station Atlanta at the present-day Peachtree DeKalb Airport in nearby Chambly moved to Dobbins AFB. The Navy constructed a cantonment area on the southwest portion of Dobbins AFB for the use. In June 1992, the official name was changed from Dobbins Air Force Base to Dobbins Air Reserve Base. In 2003, the Air Force Reserve Command changed the name again to Dobbins Joint Air Reserve Base. However, with the closure of the NAS Atlanta on the 29th of September 2009, 1989, the name reverted to Dobbins Air Reserve Base once again. In September 2005, the 53rd Weather Reconnaissance Squadron Hurricane Hunter aircraft flew out of Dobbins ARB after Hurricane Katrina did major damage to their normal home at Keesler Air Force Base in Biloxi, Mississippi. Numerous evacuees also came to Metro Atlanta through Dobbins ARB, including many Medivist medical patients taken in by local hospitals. Over the years, a wide variety of U.S. Army Air Forces and U.S. Air Force aircraft have been stationed at Dobbins AFB, with the Air Force Reserve and the Air National Guard, including the P-51 Mustang, F-51 Mustang, F-84 Thunderstreak, F-86 Sabre, C-97 Stratocruiser, C-123 Provider, C-124 Globemaster II, F-100 Super Sabre, F-105 Thunder Chief, F-4 Phantom II, C-7 Caribou, C-130 Hercules and the F-15 Eagle. Naval aircraft have included the A-4 Skyhawk, A-7 Corsair II, A-6 Intruder, F-A-18 Hornet and C-9 Skytrain. Two of the U.S. Navy and OV-10 Bronco, R-1 Sea Cobra, UH-1 Huey and F-A-18 Hornet aircraft of the U.S. Marine Corps. Current and future. The future of Plant No. 6 seems secure. In 1995, Lockheed merged with Martin Marietta to become Lockheed Martin. The C-130 Hercules remains in production 60 years after the first one rolled out in 1955. Work also continues on the F-22 Raptor and the Joint Strike Fighter. Dobbins ARB has its own zip code, 30,069, and Lockheed Martin also has its own zip code, 30,063. However, Marietta is the only place name considered acceptable by the United States Postal Service from the latter. Dobbins ARB is also an automated weather station, reporting 5 minutes before every hour. Until sometime in 2008, it only reported from 7 a.m. to 11 p.m., although it occasionally reported overnight during unusual weather conditions, such as strong winds due to the 2004 hurricanes. Local conditions shown on the Weather Channel and Weather Scan are now taken from a different system set up by TWC during the mid-2000s. Until then, overnight conditions for local cable TV systems came from Fulton County Airport. Like most U.S. bases, Dobbins ARB has had to fend off several attempts at closing it, as part of streamlining the country's military and reducing unnecessary spending. Development has steadily encroached upon the base since the war. 1978 OV-1 Mohawk, 1989 A-7 Corsair II and 1993 C-130 Hercules plane crashes into residential areas near the base raised questions of safety in having a base in such a densely populated suburban area. The airfield now sits in a vast sea of urban development. Flying demonstrations at air shows were discontinued some years ago because of safety concerns, although the Navy hosted air shows in 2004 and 2006, and the Air Force side hosted air shows in 2008 and 2010. Public complaints about the noise continue, and attempts to close the facility have been thwarted so far by powerful local politicians, such as former U.S. Senator Sam Nunn in 1995. However, some have proposed that it again become a commercial airport, as it was originally envisioned. Dobbins ARB is the only military facility left in northern Georgia after the 2005 Base Realignment and Closure Commission recommendations were enacted. The Georgia Air National Guard transferred to Dobbins AFB in 1996, leaving Air Force Reserve C-130s as the only Air Force flying unit at the base. The 148th Medical Company and elements of the 151st Aviation Regiment of the Army National Guard are also based there. More units are moving to Dobbins ARB as the Georgia Army National Guard takes over NAS Atlanta as the latter closes due to BRAC and becomes a tenant, non-flying command known as Navy Operational Support Center Atlanta. Until the late 20th century, the oldest building on base was part of the Lockheed Martin complex, and was built before the American Civil War. Legend has it that the only reason the building wasn't burned to the ground during Union General William Tecumseh Sherman's March to the Sea in 1864 was because the building's owner, a British citizen, had flown the British flag during the occupation of Marietta, part of the Atlanta campaign. Near Dobbins ARB's main gate stands a Wichita-built B-29 named Sweet Eloise, which is on public display as a memorial to World War II bomber production plant at the site. However, at least two Marietta-built B-29s have survived the years. One is on display at the Georgia Veterans Memorial State Park near Cordial, and the other is located at Dobbins Air Force Base's Museum of Flight, near Macon.